Hello and welcome to this class of Principles of Microeconomics. I am your teacher, Mohammad Nadeem Sarwar. This is our first lecture of this course. In this lecture, we shall introduce ourselves with economics and few very basic things that we need to know before studying economics. In this lecture, we shall be discussing the scope, methods, and tools that are usually used in studying economics as a whole and especially in economics. The proper outline of this lecture is so let's start with the lecture. Students, first of all, let's understand what is economics. To understand economics, we are starting from world history. Economics is derived from word oikonomia, which means household management. So naturally, economics should be something like management of a household. Let's see what is meant by management of household. Students, a household consists of few members of a family living together, sharing everything. In each and every family, there are few earners, whereas almost everyone in the family is a spender. Earners bring in resources to the family, whereas spenders are responsible for all the expenditures made by the household. Resources, by resources, we mean monetary resources. These could be brought in by making some investment, by doing a job or a work at somewhere, or by anything else. However, we see that a household in which resources are more than expenditure, their living standard improves with the passage of time. However, for a household in which the expenditures are greater than its financial resources, their living standard eventually goes on to decrease. Similarly, a household with more earners and with more resources is different in its spending expenditures or in its allocation of resources than a household with limited resources. So we need to manage existing expenditures within existing resources to make it better off. And studying the relationship between resources and expenditures in this way, but not for a single household, but for each and every household, for each and every firm, and for each and every society and country is called as economics. Now let's look at another dimension and before coming properly to the definition of economics. We have studied about the resources. We categorize all the available resources in an economy into four classes. First, land, which represents natural resources, all the gifts of nature that help us producing some goods. For example, rivers, lakes, naturally built lakes, sea, deserts, climate conditions, hills, and rainfall, etc., etc. All these things help us in producing goods. Next is labor. Labor means human effort. These efforts could be mental or physical. All those efforts that help us in producing any good or service is termed as labor. Next is capital. Students, we define capital in economics in a different way than we define it in accounting or in business studies. In economics, capital is mm, machinery or tools or any made main thing that helps in producing a commodity. For example, if you own a furniture house and you produce different kind of tables, chairs, sofa set, etc., then the wood cutting machine, the hammer, the other things that you need to produce tables, chairs, and your output, all these are capital. The capital is always man-made. It is not your output, but it helps you produce the output. Last is entrepreneur or organization. Entrepreneur or organization represents a body or a single person. I mean, a single person or a group of people who take all the decisions, and with every decision, there is a risk involved. So we can say these are the decision makers and risk takers. Actually, these are the people who decide which natural resource we need and how much quantity, what kind of labor we need and how many, what kind of machinery we will be using, what we will be producing, and how much quantity, and where we will be selling it, and so on and so on. There is a risk involved with each and every decision. It may turn out to be a good decision or a bad decision. So entrepreneurs are responsible for all these things. Now coming to the expenditure side, expenditures arise from the wants, and wants we can categorize them in three categories broadly. First, necessities, that is, those things without which we cannot live. Like we need food, we need clothes, we need a place to live in. These are the necessities. And remember, economics talk about wants, not necessities. Then are the comforts. Comforts are those things without which we can live. But with these things, our life is made easier. For example, having a fan in your room, or having a decent room, having a bed in your house, having a car, a moderate type of car, having a motorcycle, and so on and so on. Next are the luxuries. These are the goods that are demanded at higher income. These Without these goods, your life is also easy, but with these goods, your living standard is kind of pertain to be very high. So these are the luxuries. All the expenditures arise because of wants, and all the wants can be categorized into these three categories. Next thing about wants and resources is that human resources or means of production are very limited. They may include income or wealth or time. Both of these things are limited. We have limited 24 hours in a day. We have a limited life of say 60 years, 70 years, 80 years, or even 100 years. Similarly, the income is also limited. On the other hand, the wants or ends are unlimited. For example, you may have a desire for a home at a certain stage of your life. If you buy a home, after some time, you may want to have a bigger home. After having a bigger home, uh, and after passing some more time, you may want to have another home in different uh, side of your country so that you can enjoy vacations or other things there. Similarly, we want entertainment, we want happiness, we want so many other things in the life, and wants are always multiplying. If one want is fulfilled, that want may arise again after some time. For example, the want for food, want for new clothes, and also if a want is not fulfilled, then it may also arise again after some time. So the cycle of wants continues right from your birth till your death. Therefore, we say that the resources are scarce or limited, whereas the wants are unlimited. Another thing about the resources is that a resource may have multiple uses. For example, if you have 1 hour of time, you can watch a video like maybe a short movie or a serial or a drama, or you may listen to the music, or you may do some studies, or you may have time with the family. So there are multiple uses. Similarly, if you have, let's say, 1 million rupees with you, you can spend it on so many goods, and it all depends upon your preferences. Similarly, all the wants are not equally important. Some wants are more important and some wants are less important. Sorry. Now, economics studies human behavior as a relationship between ends and scarce means, which have alternative uses. This is one of the classical definitions of economics. It was posted. It was first Economics was first defined in this way by Mr. Robbins, and his definition still have very much worth in it. Economics studies how how human beings cope with scarcity of resources and multiple unlimited wants. So this is all about managing your unlimited wants within your limited resources. And remember, the wants are different in importance. Some wants are more important, some are less important. Similarly, the resources have multiple uses. We can also say that economics studies how people allocate scarce resources for production, distribution, and consumption, both individually and collectively. So it is about individual decision maker, like how I make my consumption decisions, how I make my time allocation decisions. Similarly, it is also about collective decisions, how a country makes his choices and how uh, the uh, decision makers of a country decide for the future of the country. We can also say that economics is the science of choice, or economics is the science of scarcity, because we have scarce resources and we have unlimited ones. Remember, by scarcity, we mean something is less than needed. We will come to it later. The main branches of economics, there are so many branches, but the major branches are two. First is the microeconomics, which studies the behavior of individual economic agents. That is how a single consumer makes consumption decision, how a single firm makes production decisions, how a single market works, and how a single government make public choice decisions, etc. So it discusses economics at micro, means very, very small level. The other main branch of economics is macroeconomics, which is the study of overall economy of a country, of a region, or of the whole world. Therefore, in macroeconomics, we study The problems like unemployment, inflation, growth, economic growth, etc. These are the issues that are for the country as a whole, or for the region as a whole, or for the world as a whole. These are not like individual decisions or individual issues. As I told, there are so many other branches of economics, but all those branches are linked in one or another way to these main branches. Therefore, I am just concentrating on the main branches of economics. And now I am moving on to the methods. What methods we use in economics? There are two ways. First is positive economics. Positive economics means describing an event, an economic event, obviously, as it is. That is, you seek to understand the behavior and the operation of system without making judgment. You do not judge it on whether it is good or bad or how it can be improved. You just understand an economic event or an economic system as it is. For example, you go to market and see what goods are being bought, what which goods are highly priced, which could have lower prices, how consumers are making their decisions without making any value judgment comment on that. This is positive economics. I'm sorry. Next is normative economics. Normative economics analyzes the economic outcomes and then it passes a value judgment that it categorizes them. Is that outcome is good or bad? And it may also prescribe an action and like how to improve the positive outcome or how to cope with the negative outcome. For example, we can discuss how the cash transfer programs are working. If we just study their work, this is positive economics. But if we study whether they help the people in their living, whether they are successful in pulling out the people from poverty, how their effectiveness can be improved, then this is normative economics. This normative economics is also called as policy economics. In simple words, positive economics studies what is and normative economics studies what should be. Next, how to think like an economist. That is how economists think and how they commentate on economic events. What are the key principles that we should keep in mind as we go through this course? First is scarcity. Economists view that almost all the things that are in the world which we study in economics are scarce. By scarcity, we mean a thing is less than needed. It is needed in higher quantity, but it is available in lesser quantity. So, the supply of water at the bank of the river may not be scarce, but the supply of water, if you are in a desert, it is very much scarce there. Similarly, the supply of oxygen for breathing is not scarce in our daily life, but it may get very, very scarce if you are going at the top of a hill, top of a high hill. How we measure scarcity? We measure scarcity by the price. Price is the main indicator of scarcity. A thing with zero price is assumed not to be scarce. A thing with low price is assumed to be lowerly scarce commodity. And if a commodity is highly priced, then it is more scarce. You can observe it in your daily life when when the shortage of something arises, its price goes up. That is the price and scarcity. They are quite strongly linked with each other. And if you want to explore more about it, I would like to recommend you to read the famous water diamond paradox. That's a very good read, a very good material to be read, and that actually helps you understand why some very important things in our life have low prices or even no price, but some less important things have very high price. What is the consequence of scarcity? The consequence of scarcity is that we have to make a choice. Like if I have only 1000 rupees, then I would definitely, before spending them, I would definitely think whether I should spend it on food or on a book or on buying a dress. And how much should I spend on food, how much on the books, and how much on the dresses. But let's say if I have unlimited wealth, what will happen? I would never think about it in this way. I would just spend it without making any choice and without thinking for a second even. So scarcity actually gives rise to the choice. Next is opportunity cost. By opportunity cost, economists mean the best alternative foregone or given up when making a choice. We have just studied that all the economic resources are scarce. Let's say that I have a plot, a piece of land, and I can put it to several uses. For example, I can build a house on it, I can build a shop on it, a house on it, I can build a shop on it, or I can, let's say, make an amusement park on that and earn money. Now, because my resources are scarce, I have to make a decision whether to build a house, to build a shop, or to make an amusement park. Let's say I decide to make an house, so I will be sacrificing the earning from shop or the earning from amusement park. How should I decide about it? What should I do? I just look at the returns that I get from each choice. For example, a house gives me a return of 100. A shop gives me a return of 120. And an amusement park gives me a return of, say, 90. So my best decision will be making a shop. But to make a shop, I will have to sacrifice house as well as making of amusement park. What is the best alternative of shop? The best alternative of shop is definitely constructing a house. So the opportunity cost of making a shop will be the benefit that I could have got by building a house. In economics, we evaluate all these decisions based on this, and we always think about opportunity cost. That is when, like I am recording this lecture for you, what best I could have done alternative to this in this time. That is the opportunity cost of recording this lecture. And we always think in terms of opportunity cost. We will study it in more detail when we shall be discussing the cost of production. Third is marginalism. Economists do not evaluate goods at its average, but they evaluate goods and they evaluate the decisions, especially when they compare the costs and benefits of a decision based on the principle of marginalism. Marginalism says that you have to look that a little change in your decision will cause what effect, and you always evaluate your decision for those little changes. That is, you must analyze additional or incremental cost or benefit arising from a choice or from a decision. Let me just use a board to show you the importance of this principle. Let's say you you derive a van and you are planning to take you are a you are operating as a tourist company and you are taking a trip of tourists to a hill station. A van is there to take the people. There are 10 seats in the van and you are charging, let's say, rupees 1000 from each person. You know that out of this charge of 1000, you will have to make certain expenditures because you are managing a tour. Let's say there are some fixed expenditures. These fixed expenditures do not depend on how many people are there. For example, you may have 5% or you may have 7% or you may have 10%, but the cost of van, the salary of the driver, the fuel expenditures and others will remain fixed. Let's say per person, per person, I am saying it again, per person fixed cost is, let's say, 600. And there are some expenditures that are there if a person is traveling and that are not there if a person is not traveling with you. For example, food expenditures. The more people will be, the higher will be the food expenditures and so on. Let's say these expenditures, which I name variable expenditures, and again I am evaluating them at per person. So per person variable expenditures are, let's say, 200 and you are making 200 profit from each person. Let's say your van is just ready to leave, but since you have 10 seats, but only 9 of those seats are occupied. You made a commitment to your customers that we will be leaving on a specific date and at a specific time. And just before leaving that, you counted the people and you said there are only 9 people. But as a commitment, you will have to leave. Certainly, a person comes and he says that, dear, I'm, I want to go with you. However, I can just only pay you 300. I will not pay you 1000. The person says he will be paying 300. I will not pay you 1000. Should you take him with you on the visit or not? Here is the answer. If you take the expenditure, then per person expenditure is around 800. This person is giving you only 300. So based on the average, taking this person on board will be will not be a good decision because he is not even covering the expenditure, forget about the profit. However, economists do not think like this. This may be very, very much misleading. How? Economists think that by taking this person on board, the additional benefit will be of 300, and taking this person with you will cause you an additional cost of only 200. Sorry, I must correct it. Additional benefits are 300. He is paying you 300, but additional cost, the variable cost that is associated with a person, is only 200. So in fact, taking this person on board We have marginal benefits exceeding marginal cost. Let me write it just benefit. Benefits are higher than cost. So taking this person on board will eventually add something to our profit or make our losses a little small. So we should take the person on board. This is how economists make decisions. We always think about margin. For example, if a company is producing, let's say, 20 units of a commodity, then an economist will think, if I produce 21 goods, how much additional cost I have to bear? That will be the marginal cost. And how much additional benefit I can make out of this 21st unit. If the benefits are higher, then he will go on making this unit. And if benefits are lower, then he will not make the 21st decision. That's how we make economic decisions. That is, economists always think at margin. That is, they compare the marginal benefits and marginal costs. That is the principle of marginalism. Next, we discuss the tools. First tool that economists use is model. Economists normally explain real world events. However, the real world situation is very complex. There are so many factors that affecting an event. Some are affecting it significantly and some are affecting it insignificantly, but they have the effect. However, studying everything at a single time is very difficult. Therefore, economists use models to understand complex world realities. And by model, how they construct model, they focus on just important items or important ingredients and leave all unimportant or insignificant factors. Models are usually mathematical equations. These consist of coefficients, variables, and symbols. Some variables are named as endogenous variables. These are the variables that a model tries to explain, whereas some are the exogenous variables. We take them as given and we do not study their uh, generating process. A model just explains the generating process of endogenous variables, whereas some variables are taken as given. For example, when you say the quantity demand depends upon the price, you take the price as given, and then your quantity demand depends upon that price. We will study more about endogenous and exogenous variables later in this course. There is an important assumption in almost all the models that whatever variables we have in the model, we take them as variant, and whatever we are not writing up in our model is taken to be fixed. So we write down citrus paribus, or we write down a statement that all else remain the same when we are stating a model. So this concept actually helps us simplify the reality and focusing on important things. Now, this is a little complex example of all these things. If we have these three, that is quantity demand depends upon the price and income, the quantity supply depends upon the price of that commodity and price of related commodities. And we know that quantity demand is quantity supply. This is the complete model. Then this model explains how the prices and quantities are determined. So this is completely the model. And in this model, the endogenous variable that a model is explaining are price and the quantity. By quantity, we mean quantity demand as well as quantity supplied. Whereas this model doesn't explain how income is coming, how the prices of other goods in this model are being determined. So these are taken as given and these are called as exogenous variables. Next is the graph. You had been studying the graph from your earlier school courses. Graph is normally a two-dimensional space. We have 3D, 4D graphs as well, but normally we draw it in two-dimensional space using different numbers and scales and etc. Graphs are easy to understand. They we can, with the help of the graphs, we can summarize our whole data, summarize our whole finding. These are also attractive. A layman can also understand so many things just by looking at the graph. So the graph make problems easier to understand, and we can also check the irregularities and regularities in the data where the trends are changing, where there is a shift or where there is a jump or gap in the model or in the data. A graph is constructed normally in the two-dimensional space. One is the horizontal axis called as x-axis, other is the vertical axis called as y-axis, where they both intersect, that is the origin. Above the origin, we have positive values for the vertical axis, and below the origin, we have negative values for the y-axis. And similarly, on the right side of the origin, we have positive values for the x-axis, and on the left side of the origin, we have negative values for the x-axis. Each point on the graph represents two values. First value is for the x-axis and the second value is for the y-axis. The point where graph touches y-axis is called as y-intercept, and the point where graph touches x-axis is called x-intercept. Y-intercept is the value of the variable on the y-axis when the value of variable on the x-axis is 0. Similarly, x-intercept is the value of y variable is the value of x variable when y variable is 0. We in economics we read the graph on two important grounds. First is the slope. Slope measures the magnitude and the direction of change in variable because of change in other variable. For example, if the price changes, how the quantity demand changes. The slope measures its direction. Will the quantity demand increase or decrease, and its magnitude, how much will it increase or how much will it decrease. These both are summarized by the slope, and mathematically slope is uh, between the 2 points. Slope is the change in y-axis variable divided by the change in x-axis variable. We can use its different symbols like delta or d or curly, or we can also say rise over run. Positive or negative relation on the graph is quite easy to see. It's moving from left to right. If the slope is going up, or if the curve or the line is going up, then it shows the positive relation. Positive relation means that an increase in one variable, an increase in independent variable causes an increase in the dependent variable. Whereas negative or inverse relation means an increase in one variable causes a decrease in other variable. By one variable, I mean independent variable. An increase in independent variable causes a decrease in dependent variable, and vice versa. Mathematical formula gives us both slope and the nature, but we are mostly concerned with the magnitude only. And sometimes we are concerned with the nature, that is positive or negative only. So we have to be very careful about that. On a straight line, the magnitude of the slope remains the same, but if it is a curve, then the magnitude of the slope will be changing. Similarly, the sign may also change in a positive way or negative way. A horizontal line has zero slope and a vertical line has infinite slope. These are the few examples that we will be needing when we shall be explaining the graphs. For the first, we have a positive but decreasing slope. Then B, we have positive but increasing slope. B, we can see that curve is falling from left to right, so it is negative slope. Again, D is also a negative slope and the magnitude of the slope is decreasing. E shows that up till point A, the slope is positive, and then after point A, the slope is negative. When it is positive and decreasing, and when it is negative, it is negative and increasing. Similarly, point F, the graph F shows that the curve of the slope is first negative and decreasing. After point A, it is positive and increasing. So we shall need these understanding when we shall be explaining the graphs. That's all about this lecture. In the next lecture, we shall discuss economic systems. We shall be discussing about capitalism and socialism. First, after understanding these two, we shall be comparing it with Islamic economic system. That's all for this lecture. I hope you would have find it easy, simple, interesting, and not that much dry, of course. Please post your questions and give your feedback in comments. Also consider subscribing the channel, liking and sharing the video. Thank you and goodbye.